Hello guys, we are back for part 2 of my collection, of my dinosaur collection. Now because that video reached 20 minutes long, I had to cut it into this section of the video, so I hope you guys understand. Also because this tablet of mine doesn't have much memory, so because of that I had to cut it into 2 parts, or else it would have been not too easy for me. Anyways, yapping, let's get to the second part of the video. Starting off strong, we have another creature you guys may recognize from my series. It is the Stegosaurus, also known as the roof lizard. As you can see, its plates in this version in particular is very beautiful. I really love what Mattel did here for the orange and the brown for its plates, and including the cream color they did for the tips. And of course the tail still moves, just like old OG minis. So yeah, this is a very solid mini, including the 2 other versions Mattel has released over the years, and that is a green version with orange plates. Sadly, no eye printing, but all well. Like I said in the last part, it's still cool. You can see they also gave it good detail in terms of the scales. Sadly, it does get warped sometimes with the plates. You can see they're a little bit weird looking. So yeah, in case for you guys out there collecting these things, they do get warped sometimes, so my apologies for that. My condolences for that, I meant to say, because it's not my fault I don't own Mattel. Anyways, you guys may recognize this last one as a character of mine, including one of my favorite prints they did for the Stegosaurus mold. That is the brown one with white tips, also known as Horus, the Stegosaurus in my series. And as you can see, this is actually another one that has eye printing, which I'm really fond of. And of course, it has the signature white plates and along with the blue tips, which is why I really love this mini, including the colors themselves. So yeah, very solid mini, Mattel. Very solid mini. And I'm sorry if I just bumped the camera. My setup is not the best. Next up, we have another famous creature from mainly books, and that is the Iguanodon. Now, contrary to belief, I know I should be saying this in a Jurassic Adventure episode, but honestly, I'm going to say it now. Contrary to belief, Iguanodons are actually not hadrosaurs. Hadrosaurs include Parasaurolophus and Ouranosaurus and other such as, and Corythosaurus. This creature, however, is actually an ornithopod, which means they are the ones with the thumb spikes. You can't really see it, but they do have a little thumb spike. So yeah, bet you didn't know that, did you? At least not yet. Maybe. So yeah, this particular green one I got from the blind box line, along with this other version I'll show you here in a sec. You can see it's got a beautiful cream face and brown stripes and a lime color, which I thought was pretty interesting. The next version, however, sadly does not have eye printing, but it still looks pretty cool in my opinion. We have the blue version with the black stripes. You can see this version is really cool as well. Like I said, the lack of eye printing is sort of a lackluster feature of this mini, but it's still a pretty nice mini in my opinion. You can see from the front it looks really cool, especially all the stripes it's got on his shoulders and thighs. Next up, we have more strange creatures. We have one of my most recent favorites, by the way, and you guys may recognize this creature from episode 2 of Creature Clash, of my Creature Clash series. It is the Concavenator. You can see it's got a blue face, actually some golden orangish looking eyes, and a orange hump. And actually closely at this mini, they actually gave it speckles, some dark blue speckles, which I thought was very, very cool. So yes, this mini is quite cool, honestly. I really like what they did with it. And as you can see, it's even got speckling on its foot, which I thought is pretty awesome as well. The next version, however, might be almost more cooler than that one back there. We have the dark blue one with the yellowish kind of color for its throat, and this orangish mask it's got across its face, and an orange hump leading to orange patterns on its back as well. which, by the way, I know this is a sidetrack, but I really love what Utah Raptor 1987 did in his video of Jurassic Sanctuary. I think it was episode 3. My apologies if I got it wrong, but I really love what he did with it, making this version a female and that one back there with the blue face a male, which I thought was pretty interesting because I didn't know who was who because I'm not that much of a Concavinator researcher. But yeah, so props to Utah Raptor 1987 in case I ever use that idea, just letting you know. So yeah, as you can see, it's got a beautiful yellow eye. It honestly looks a little creepy. So yeah, this is a pretty cool animal that Mattel has brought back in plastic. Like I said, guys, in case any of this falls over, I'm not putting it back up because it's that much of a struggle, trust me. Next up, we have another famous creature. This creature appeared in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom back in 2018, and of course has sadly not appeared in my series yet, though you may recognize it from the thumbnail in the trailer of Creature Clash. We have the Carnotaurus, the meat-eating bull. You can see it's got beautiful horns, a beautiful red color, along with brown patterns, a cream jaw, along with a cream underbelly, and thankfully eye printing. So yeah, Carnotaurus is honestly pretty cool. And also, if you guys look closely, he's got very cool looking scales. You can see they're almost like bumpy, but they also have like this great amount of like rough texture, which is pretty accurate for a reptile. And of course, those tiny little baby hands. There he went. Next up, we have another creature you guys may recognize from Jurassic Adventure, including one of the more peaceful ones. We have the Parasaurolophus. I really love this version where they gave some blue to it, along with some brown stripes to go with it. Sadly, this is also another mini that has, for some reason, no eye printing, so that's kind of disappointing. But still, regardless, this mini itself is really cool. And of course, Parasaurolophus being the famous creature as it is, it deserves to be recognized in this form. It's a very nice mini. As soon as it can stand. I don't think it's going to stand. Now, I do actually have the older version of the Parasaurolophus, which you guys have not seen in one of my videos yet. This little guy is actually a yellow Parasaurolophus with an articulated neck. This is the only one I had of this little guy, of the original Parasaurolophus with the brown coloring and of course the articulating head. Now, I'm particularly going to make this one maybe an alpha of a herd of Parasaurolophuses. Maybe, maybe not. Regardless, I decided to keep this because it was just really cool. Mainly because of the articulated head. Next up, we have another creature that you guys may recognize. This is the cousin of the Spinosaurus. We have the Baryonyx. Personally, I really love this version, where it's got blue scales, well, a blue pattern on top of it, including its head, and some yellow eyes. Sadly, for some reason, no articulating jaw, so that's very, very disappointing. But it is still a very, very cool mini. And of course, it's better if we get more Spinosaur creatures. And of course, here's the second version. It is a really cool green version with this green pattern. It almost looks like an alligator. Or a crocodile, sorry, in case I got it wrong for the snout size. So yeah, these two are a very nice duo of minis. Next up, we have another famous creature. You guys may recognize it from Jurassic Park 3. We have the Ceratosaurus. You guys may also recognize it in the video of my series. As you can see, it's got a red coloration with the brown spots, and of course, spikes going all the way from its head down to its tail, which I think is pretty cool, and of course, a real good attention to detail. And of course, if you guys recognize the color, this is the exact same kind of look it had in Jurassic Park 3 when it smelled the Spinosaurus's dung. And of course, it took off after smelling it because it was scared of the Spinosaurus. The next version, however, I think this version is quite awesome looking. We have the brown Ceratosaurus with this really cool medium nougat orange color, and of course yellow eyes, which that one back there has black eyes, the basic black looking eyes. So yeah, this is a very cool looking mini, and a very cool retexture of an original mini, or repaint, whatever you guys want to call it. Of course, it's got the signature horn, hence the name Ceratosaurus, horned lizard. Next up, we have more famous creatures you guys may recognize. We have the Nasutoceratops, one of my personal favorites. Now, of course, you're going to recognize this creature as Jax in my series, the bull male Nasutoceratops. You can see, I really love this dinosaur, mainly because of its cow-like horns. I really love that, because it makes it more cooler and more distinguishable from its bigger cousin, Triceratops. And of course, it's got a huge nose, hence the name Big Nose Lizard. However, as you can see, sadly, no eye printing, which is very a shame. But at least they gave it some of its signature patterns, such as the signature eyes, almost eye-like looks for the frill. And of course, some back printing, and even an articulation head, which is actually, fun fact, something the Triceratops mini lacks. You can see I can twist and turn all I want, but the head is not moving. However, with this one, you can actually move it up and down, and even do this. So yeah, this is a very cool mini. As you can see, the collection is already huge. Anyways, now let's move on. We have another very cool dinosaur, and that is the Ankylosaurus, the most armored dinosaur out there. And as you can see, it's so armored. This mini is actually so armored, it's actually quite sturdy, unlike all its other predecessors. As you can see, it's very spiky as well, which I thought was pretty cool. And you can see, if you guys look really closely, at the back and other parts of this mini, as soon as the camera picks it up, you could see some really good scaling, some really good scale detail, which I thought was awesome. If you guys could see the individual scale molds. And of course, you can see also it has eye printing. Sadly, not much coloring goes on for this mini. They just used the base of the plastic and just splotted a little bit of green on top. But oh well, it's still a really cool mini. And they did at least give it some, well in this case, some freckles for this one. You can see, like the Concavenator, this mini also has the same traits where sometimes it might get some speckling all over it. You can see, if you look really closely, it's got some little green stuff on its face because that's its freckles. Well, at least this one's freckles because, you know, it's randomized. Which I also really like because it's also randomized. But anyways, next up is actually a mini you guys have recently seen in my films. And of course, a mini fun fact I've actually been hunting for a very long time. This is the Brachiosaurus mini. One of my personal favorite minis, mainly because of its articulated neck, and the fact the mold itself looks really good. Sadly, for some reason, when I got this one in the advent calendar, its eye on its right side of its face for mine got messed up, and now it just looks like it's just a black splotch of paint that's got splotched on its face. However, if you can see the difference, if I flip it onto the other side, you can see the eye looks normal. On this side, it just looks like, well, something got sprayed in its eye, and now it's just bleeding. But yeah, personally, besides the messed up eye, this mini is still pretty good. And of course, it's one of the newer ones, meaning it's more flexible. However, the second version I have is actually the old version of it. This one was actually ridiculous. I had to pay $15 for this thing on Amazon. A single mini. I was like, what? This thing is quite rare if you're willing to pay $15 for it, but honestly it was a little bit worth it because this is a kind of a good mini. As you can see, just to prove it, it is an older one. It's kind of not really flexible. Unlike this one over here, you can see it's much more flexible. And also you can see the difference with the colors. This one is actually more purple. This one's actually more brown. And also it also has more, well, at least mine has more white. This one's actually got a little bit more brown. And of course, thankfully, both its eyes are actually normal. Unlike poor 2024 one over there. As soon as the camera picks it up. There you go. So yeah, these are two very cool minis, and yet very rare ones that are apparently worth $15 on a website. Anyways, next up is actually another creature you guys have not seen in the series yet. It is the Albertosaurus. This, by far, is quite an awesome looking mini. You can see, I really love what they did here with the little cream colored lower jaw along with the orange like stripe it has across its face. And of course, mainly the detail to the scales. And of course, the almost olive green color it's got. So yeah, that is a very nice mini. Next up, we have another creature you guys have not seen, nor I bet not even know about in the series. This is the Prostosuchus. A very weird creature at that. Sadly, Mattel has not made a newer version, so sadly this is the old one where it's not as flexible nor right to scale. Because as you can see, the creature I'm pretty sure was smaller than this. You see, if I compare it to the Triceratops, it's ridiculously big. But still, it's still a pretty cool mini. And as you can see, it has an articulated jaw, it's got eye printing, it's got pretty good, decent scale detail, in my opinion. So yeah, the very nice, beautiful mini. Next up, we have another creature that I've not shown in the series, nor it's not a new one, it's an older one. And it's actually almost one of its kind in my series, in my collection. It's one of the only ones I have. It's the Diplodocus. You can see I really like this sauropod because it's the only spiky sauropod I have, despite the next one I'll show you. Well, one of the other ones I'll show you in this video. You can see it's got spikes going to its head almost all the way to the tip of its tail. And of course, it's just really nice, and obviously it's got neck articulation. And of course, like I said, it's the older ones, meaning it's not as flexible. And as you can see, thankfully it's got eye printing as well. So yeah, this is a very nice mini. And of course, another sauropod to add to the series. Next up, we actually have one of my more favorite creatures. Not as good as the Pseudoceratops, but it's still quite a favorite of mine. This is the Sinoceratops, meaning Chinese horn face. As you can see, this in particular, I really love the single-horned ceratopsians. I don't know why, I just love the single-horn versions, unlike the two horns that the Triceratopses have, unless they're cow-looking, like the Pseudoceratops. But as you can see, it has actually a beautiful crown of feathers. I mean, no, not feathers, I'm really sorry. I meant to say spikes. And as you can see, since it's Jurassic World version, it does have a pair of holes in its frill. So sadly, that's going to trigger some people in the comments. And of course, well, sure, the design does not look too accurate, but honestly, I really love it. And of course, at least it's got head articulation. Though it does have one quality issue. Its frill is so thinly produced, the frill is actually bent. It can actually bend back sometimes when you try to lift up the head with it. You can see I'm trying to lift it up. The frill is not wanting to stay in place. You can see I keep trying to lift up the head, but the joint is not moving. Because of this, the frill just awkwardly kind of bends. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. But in terms of that, besides that, the printing is really good too. It has eye printing, as you can see, a orange mask across its face, which I think is pretty cool, and some stripes. So yeah, this mini is also a pretty good mini. And it's even one of the ones that's victimed to speckling. You see, if you look really closely, there's some dark red speckles all over its face. All over its frill as well. Next up, we actually have another creature that has not yet appeared in my series, but yeah, it's quite another famous one out there. This is the Giganotosaurus, also known as the Giganotosaurus. Personally, I call it a Giga. Some people call it a Giga, but regardlessly, don't matter who you call it. Some people actually call it a Gigo, which I thought was like, what the heck? But anyways, this is by far the heaviest, the second heaviest, and the second biggest mini I've ever had. This thing is massive. As you can see, if you compare it to the Triceratops mini in this case, you could clearly see the difference. Which I know I know Giga usually means a fancy word of big, but that's just ridiculous. And as you can see, it's thankfully got an articulated jaw, including beautiful looking teeth, and even some eye printing. If you look really closely, its eye is kind of tiny. But as you can see, it actually has some pupil printing. Sadly, the camera is not allowing you to see it, which is kind of unfortunate. And as you can see, yes, I know this is not accurate in terms of the skull look, and of course, its spikes. But at least it looks cool. You can see its spikes is really nice looking, including the little hump it has on the back. And of course, that awesome looking head. Last but not least for this video, because like I said, the collection is so big, I literally have to cut this video into 3 parts. And if you've seen the last video, I explained already why, because this tablet of mine doesn't like to have long videos like this sitting in it. And because of that, the memory is not like it either. So the last dinosaur for part 2 is another sauropod. This is my second spiky sauropod I have. This is the Amargasaurus, which is one of my favorites. This is another rare mini, sadly, because I've only picked up 2 of these little guys, which at the time I don't want to even just go into it. But sadly, it's another mini that suffers from the quality control. It does not have no eye printing, so that's going to trigger some people. As you can see, it's got some awesome looking spikes, including the awesome famous neck spikes it dons, along with a little bit of red stripes in them as well, which I thought was pretty nice, along with some good patterns on its back. And of course the awesome tail that used to whip predators. And of course they got the size right with the other sauropods, such as its cousin Diplodocus and its big cousin Brachiosaurus, which I thought is awesome. They at least got the size ratio. So yeah guys, that's going to do it for part 2 of my dino collection, because the video is already 22 minutes long. Like I said, I apologize for cutting this video into multiple parts. It's so freaking, my collection is so freaking big, I literally have to cut into 3 parts, or else this tablet's going to give me a lot of hate later. Anyways, without further ado, I'll see you guys in part 3. Goodbye.